ABC of building. I don't want to do too much backing up because I took some time talking before that. But just remind you, we said the A signified that they accepted the challenge. A challenge was presented to them. And not only for just Solomon temple or the tabernacle or for the temple to come, but this has been the norm. When it comes to building a temple for the worshiping of God, this is the format that is laid out in the Word of God. It's not just simply for Rhema, place of worship. And I purpose in my heart to remind you again that every time that God gave the command to anyone to build his temple, he always told them, let them build a temple or a house for me, build my house. When he called Moses to build the tabernacle, he said in chapter 25 of Exodus, from verse 1 to 10, he said, and let them build me a sanctuary. When it came to the time of Solomon, David wanted to build the temple, and God said, no, I have chosen your son Solomon, and he will build me a temple. So God is always making it quite clear that building a house of worship is building unto the Lord. And that is very important to remember, because as we continue with the alphabet, we're going to discover, or we're going to uncover, the challenges that will arise even when you begin to build. And the purpose of the enemy of the temple of God has always been to discourage, always been to oppose, to halt, to make sure it cannot continue or it cannot happen. And when that happens, God is not going to send down an angel or send down angels. He depends upon his people. So if the people of God allow themselves to be dispirited and to be discouraged, the temple will not be built. There got to be the resilience. There got to be the pushing back against every onslaught of the enemy. That's why it's so important. And what is going to help us is remembering that we are building as unto the Lord. So today, I want to continue talking about the B. A was for they accepted the challenge, and we have done quite a bit of that last week. But let me just simply make 5 minutes here and talk about the last point I made last week, Sunday, where they did not ask any question as to where we'll get the funds from, where we'll get the money from, where we'll get the builders from. They just simply accepted, because we said, why did they accept readily? Because they understood that this was the will of God. This was not just simply Moses in the case of the tabernacle, or Solomon's or David's ambition. This was the will of God. And nothing will stop them. So when we understand that we are building a place of worship, not for Elmore, Anthony and his family, not for Guppy Singh, not for the Reggie, not for anybody, but it is for God. We are fulfilling the will of God. We are fulfilling the mandate of God. when that becomes the motivating push, nothing stops you. You rather fall down and die than to allow any issue or to allow anyone to stop you. And that's why I'm taking my time to emphasize this so strongly. Because I know when we began to build this flat you are in right now, it wasn't easy. And I shared with some folk, and they agreed that the only reason why this building reached where it is right now is because of the series we did on the Together We Build. And they actually admitted, Pastor Tony, if it was not for that series, we would not have been where we are right now. Because the thing came to a point where it was like an eyesore. Weed and moss and vine growing up all over the thing. The concrete turned, I mean, what color it was? Mossy. Folk thought it was an abandoned building. But some folk believe that we will get through. And I can't avoid mentioning what I mentioned before, the word of encouragement that different ones will give. And I want to single up Brother Bean in particular. Every time I came here, walked through this out there, and I mean, he'll be sitting down on a box or anything he can get to sit down on, he'll sit down out there. He said, but Tony, we'll get through and you'll get through. Don't mind, don't take on anybody, you'll get through. You'll get through. We go win it, we will win. And he will never, ever see me walking up and down without telling me, don't be discouraged. We will make it. We will make it. You'll get through. I know we had enemies of the church. Now, forgive me talking just like this. Maybe I might not even touch my notes. But I believe in talking from things that happen. You know, the thing that actually happened. We were, of course, we were on the Eastern Main Road. And the young lady came up to me. She came to see me. And what she told me was very heart-rending. She said, Pastor Anthony, I did not know that there are people in this country who hate you and hate Rhema like they do. I said, what? He said, this is no old talk. He said, I came out from a church in Porto, Spain, where there's an active prayer group who are praying that you will never, ever complete this building. He said, it's not old talk. He said, I came out from a church in Porto, Spain, where there's a prayer group. And the item on the prayer list is that Rhema must never, ever build. Well, these things don't move me, but they disappoint me. You know what I mean? And he said, that's not all, you know. He said, just near to where you are building, there's another one where they're not only saying you can't build, but they are doing things. They dip in their hand in obia to make sure that you wouldn't build. I say, okay, what that does, it tells you got to pray. We got to do some more praying, but said, God will make it happen that these folk will have to eat their words. And one guy who actually came out of this church he actually make it quite clear and told some members, don't take on the pastor. He's trying to fool all you. He's trying to pull wool over all your eyes. He will never, ever build. Never, ever. It's because the church has no money and he's just trying to fool all you. I'm talking about somebody who's only bored in this ministry. So I say all that to let you know that to underline the thought I'm making, that if we don't understand that this is a will of God, any old talk, any funniness, can make us stop, can make us fold our arm, can make us believe what people are saying, because we lose sight of the fact that it is God who asked us to build. And we are building as unto the Lord. So just to make you understand why they did it, it's because they were convinced that this was of God. Secondly, they were convinced that God will supply and provide, even though the stuff came from them. So let me go on to this installment. So B, they bestowed their substance. Bestowed their substance. Now, these folk did not say, all right, we believe it's God's will, so let us call a prayer meeting and begin to pray, hoping that God may do something, hoping that God may send money from heaven, hoping that God will actually do something miraculous. Because as it is, you see, one thing the people told me, well, I miss God because of the economic state of the country at the time. People are not going to release the money. You are 10 years too late. The country has no money. And you got to depend upon people to give. Now, that is true, but that is not the whole truth. You're going to observe that one of the things that God told Moses was, everyone whose heart is willing. God didn't say to him, command them to do it. Tell them myself they don't do that, I'm going to kill them. No, God didn't do that. He said, everyone whose heart is willing, take the offering from people like that. So it got to be a motivation. And the motivation is, because we are building unto the Lord, I will use what I have. I will use who I am. I will use what I am to make sure that it happens. So from the book of Exodus chapter 25, 1 to 10, I wouldn't take time to read it. You have it already since from the past installment, where God said to Moses, speak unto the children of Israel that they bring me. And, I can't help again talking about that. He said that they bring me. He didn't say they bring to you. Talking to Moses. He said they bring me an offering. And verse 10 said, when they bring the offering, use it to build me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. Speak unto them, Israel, that they bring me. I didn't realize it's up there already. An offering. Every man that giveth it with a what? A willing, who give it willingly, with his heart. You shall take the offering. I like that. Now, people have the idea that when people of God begin to build for God, they will hear say, you're taking your good money you work hard for and say you're going to give church. They missed the point. I know there's an organization in Trinidad and Tobago that gives every member a number. And the motivation of that act is to make sure that everybody mandatorily have to pay tithes. And if they don't pay the tithes, the pastor say, he missed number 24 last week. I've done for the past month, every Sunday, number 24 didn't pay tithes. That is not the purpose of God. God said to bring it, and we could decide to bring or not to bring. The heart must be made willing. Whatever, and we find in the book of Corinthians, on the first day of the week, let every man lay aside as he desire, as he purposed in his heart. So when we have a policy where people are made to pay the tithe or they are kicked out of the church, you're missing the point. That's not God's plan. God wants people who are willing. And while he depends upon people, he'll take the offering from those who will give it willingly, with his heart. Now, I can deduce from that by extension, God was saying, if a child they're willing, don't take it. I mean, you can preclude that. The American said, take it from those who are willingly giving it with their heart. He said, you shall take my offering. And again, forgive me. You shall take whose offering? My offering. Bring me an offering. And everyone who willingly gave it with his heart, take my offering. So it starts off there. And you may say to me, Pastor, that's all you prepared this morning. No, but if it was all, it would be worth it. Because, I mean, we live in a world that still hates God, eh? We live in a society that still hates the church. You might not understand because of where you live, I mean, what you're exposed to. But I remember when I was in Rio Claro, yes, that was the first church I pastored. I was going from Rio Claro to San Fernando. And we stopped in Princess Town. Some people came out and some people they came in the car, the taxi. And I began a conversation with a certain gentleman. He sat near to me in the car. And he asked me, he said, what do you do? I said, I'm a preacher. I'm a pastor. He said, oh, you want them who exploiting people's liberality? I said, what do you mean by that? He said, all you small church pastors living off of people. I mean, the fellow didn't put water in his mouth. Saying down there to a 24-year-old young man. That's who I was. And telling me, people like me, exploiting people's liberality. You know? And I asked him, I said, what church you go to? He said, I'm a Catholic. I said, all right, you're a Catholic? I said, how long have you been going to a Catholic church? He said, when the time I born, I was born a Catholic. I said, all right. According to what you're looking like, you're about 45 going 50. So for the past 50 years, you're a Catholic. I said, have you ever seen a Catholic priest working somewhere? in a factory. I said, where does your father work? He called it. He said, he ain't got to work. I said, why he ain't got to work? How does he live? You see, I never allow people to get away with their nonsense. I was just 24 years old. I said, so you have no problem. You have no problem with your father, who is the priest, just simply living because the church supports him. And you have no problem with that. Why do you have a problem with the small church pastors doing the same thing that your pastor, your priest does? That is the society we are in. They are anti-God. They are anti-church. And it is not unusual. You will hear all type of talk. Why are you wasting your money to give to them church people? And even among people who are born again, if they don't understand, if they don't have a love for God, this same kind of old talk comes out of their mouth. You say, Pastor, your song is strange today. I believe our song is strange in truth. But I'm talking again the backdrop of the society that we live in. Anybody can do anything, but don't give to a church. And they have no problem giving to their church because their church has a right to exist. But the full gospel churches have no right to exist. Sister Wynne, before she passed on to meet the Lord, she called one of our men and she said, I want to make a will. And she asked him to bring 2 witnesses. And he did bring the witnesses about a week after. And he says, I want to make a will. And so this gentleman began taking all the facts and so on. And Sister Wynne willed every single thing that she owned to the church, Rhema Fellowship Ministries, down to her dog. Her flowers, her plants, everything must go to the church. Well, she had a very good friend who belonged to a church near to us, Baratara Pentecostal Church, a woman whom I respect with all my heart, a woman whom I thought respected me also. So Sister Wynne shared with her what she had done. She had actually given the church over to her property over to the church. You know what the woman told her? A born-again believer who was a member of the board in the Baratara Pentecostal Church. Why are you so dotish? You mean you gave your house, you work hard to Anthony? You gave your home to Anthony? And Sister Wynne said to her, what do you mean by that? Now, Sister Wynne, as a woman, never made any joke. She will put you in your place right away. Her tongue had no boundary when it comes to people who step over the line. And she told her, you are disrespectful. Reverend Anthony's name is nowhere in my will. My will has Rhema Fellowship Ministries. And Sister Wynne cut that woman off as a relationship from that day. You see, guys, so you are disrespectful, and I don't have any room for people like you. And she cut off. I know the person personally. I respected the person. But that is how she was thinking. Why couldn't you leave it for your brother? And she had only one brother, Sister Wynne. but the brother never knew Jesus Christ the Savior. Why must I leave my property that God gave me for a man to drink off and to do all type of things? He doesn't love my Jesus. He doesn't love my Savior. Why must I leave anything for him? I leave everything I have because everything I have came from God. And I know the church will take care of what I have. So they bestow. God said, and then having said that, God went on to tell Moses in chapter 31. I believe the people began to bring their stuff. Who had gold brought their gold. Who had silver brought their silver. Who had linen brought their linen. Who had anything, iron and brass, they brought it in abundance. And your Bible tells you that Moses had a problem getting them to stop because they brought excess. And he had a big problem not to get, but a big problem to get them to stop. My God, I wish I was like that. Come on, folks, don't bring any more. We have enough brick. We have enough steel. We have enough cement. Please, I'm begging you all, please, don't bring any more. More to beg them to stop. And not only their substance, but their ability. They brought of their substance, that the be. And I want to put on the board, please, Exodus chapter 31. And let us sit up there. Exodus chapter 31 and verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, See, I have called by name Bezaleel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God in wisdom and in understanding and in knowledge and in all manner of workmanship. Now, not only their material possession, but God is saying, I know, having given you the material, I need to get people who can do the construction. Now, Moses, I'm not quite sure what was his knowledge in building. I'm not quite sure if you were a builder. But God said, I have given you Bezaleel and Aholiab. Aholiab name will be mentioned later on there. He said, fill them with the Spirit of God. In wisdom, in understanding, and in knowledge, in all manner of workmanship. In other words, God, being God, knew it will take expertise to get the building done. And God said, I have filled them. What I want to make clear here is us understanding that when God endows us with abilities and giftings, we need to understand that we become a steward of that ability and that gifting to be used, first of all, for God. I need you to understand that. And if you find I'm repeating myself, it's by design. Because we need We live in an age where folk get the idea that what they have achieved in life is because their own expertise. It belongs to me. But God is saying, I don't think from the context that Bezalel and Aholiab had any expertise prior to this part of the scripture here. But God has said, I want that job done. I will take expertise. I must have experts who are endowed with these expertise, wisdom to build, to understand, and to have knowledge in all manner of workmanship. I must have the blacksmith. I must have the carver. I must have the mender. I must have the welder. I must have the this and the that. I must have the carpenter. I must have the mason. I must have the man to put the finishing touch. I must have the curious workers. And he said, I have filled them with that knowledge. So Bezalel and Aholiab were to understand that what they have been endowed with was to be used for the purpose and the glory of God in the first instance. Isn't that a far cry from today's thing? And I believe that believers need to hear this. Beloved, I believe in my heart, with all my heart and my soul, that God was preparing me for what I am doing right now. I believe it. It was not coincidental. When I began to teach, teaching was my breakfast. Well, let's do St. Vincent local term. It was my tea, breakfast, and dinner. Teaching. And if you had told me I will not be a teacher, I said, you need a head examination, man. Because we live near to a school. Just one house separated the school from my house. It was my house, a house, and the school. So just a little walk, or about 2 minutes, I'm in the school compound. And I will get there in the school. Because my cousin was the one who opened up the school. So everything is in my favor. I'll get into a school room early in the morning, all 7:30, and have on the chalkboard doing all type of maps and so on and everything. And then I use 3 boards at the same time with different joints and different all type of thing. Then run back home and take a shower and get ready for 9 o'clock to go to school. After school is over, I will have like a school by myself again. From standard 1 right up to supernumerary teachers, giving them lessons at no charge. Mr. Anthony, we'll bring some. I said, I don't need any eggs. They offered me milk. I said, no, I don't want no milk. And I said, I don't want anything. Because I didn't want to get the idea that they paid me with eggs and milk. So I took nothing from anybody. And I'll be having those classes going on after school meets at 3 o'clock until 5 or 5:30. I'm now dismissing the extra lessons classes. Every end of term, I will have a treat for the class, my class, out of my own pocket. Every child will get a bun or buns and soft drink. Everything is there. They'll help me serve because we have the ice. And when the last child walked out of the school hall, for vacation. Folk, I'm not trying to, I will never lie to you. I will cry like a child because I'm missing those children. You mean I got to wait until September to see them again? I will cry when the class is dismissed, when the school is dismissed for the vacation. I will cry. Sit down on my chair and cry. That was the passion. Now I understand that was being preparing me for who I am today. I now understand that. And I want you to understand that when God gives you a special gifting, you need to understand that you are accountable to God to use that gifting, first of all, for the purpose of God, not yourself. That's why I can understand that when some folk get what they get too big. I talked to a lady in Hyderabad Pentecostal church because on my vacation time from Bible school, I used to go down there and run the church for the pastor because he was tired. So I'll take over the church in Delhi Road in Hyderabad and have a joy in doing that. So one day, while doing what I'm doing with the pastor, we had a neighbor just near to a church, and she couldn't understand that I am there almost every day, whether they have church or not. I'm in the church hall doing something. And she asked me one day, we became very close after a while. He asked me, why are you there every day? And the pastor, he's in charge of the church. Why are you there every day? I said, well, it's what I like to do. But he said, you don't find the pastor using you? I said, no. I am glad I'm able to come to help him, to relieve him, because he's tired. She couldn't understand how I could be using my time to be seen about the pastor's church when the pastor is the one who reaped the benefits of the church. So we must understand that when God gives you a gifting, don't you ever become so important. So I will make a reference to this lady in Hyderabad. I became very close to the family. I wouldn't call their name. And every time I went to a church, they're always there. When I say every time, when there are services and so on, always there. Many times they invite me to the home, and I became like a member of the family. And so when I went back to Hyderabad after my graduation, I did not see the family in the church in Hyderabad. So I went to the home and I asked her, I observed that you are not there, neither is your daughter Barbara, she isn't there. What's going on? And another sister, I think her sister was Merle, she isn't there neither. He said, well, Pastor Anthony, I leave Bible school now, so going Pastor Anthony. He said, well, that is life. He said, my daughter, she got her 5 passes, and Merle get whatever she got. And he said, in the church in Hyderabad, it's just the ordinary grassroots people. So we had to move up. Where people are more, middle class. I say, what? In other words, the people in Hyderabad are too ordinary. They are too simple. I need to, in keeping with our status, I need to move to another church where there are people with more, education or more recognized in society, because there's not even one civil servant in the Hyderabad church, but the church we have moved to, we have teachers and we have civil servants and we have this and that. I said, my God, I said, something is wrong with you. No, I did tell her that in truth. I said, something is wrong. When you come to a point, because God has blessed you, when people now are too ordinary for you, you miss the point, man. Miss the point. I understood that my passion for teaching was given to me by God to prepare me to be a teacher of the word and to teach God's people, the church. We need to understand that. They bestowed their substance. They bestowed their gifting. They bestowed their ability. Because they understood that what they had, it came from God. Do you know of anybody who became so important that they left the church? The church was now too simple. The church was now too ordinary. They became too big. Not only for the church, they became too big for God. And even God had to consider himself lucky to have people like them, being saved. Paul declares, whatever things were gained to me, I count them but dung for the excellency of the knowledge of Jesus Christ my Lord, for whom I've suffered the loss of all things and count them but what? Dung. And Paul was no wishy-washy man. Paul was an academia in whom was enshrined the intelligence of Tarsus. In Paul's day, there were 3 centers of learning in the world. Just 3. Alexandria in Egypt, Athens in Greece, and Tarsus in Asia Minor. And when you call Saul of Tarsus, I mean all the educational power was invested in the man. He's a brain. He said, when I found Jesus, everything became like dung compared to the knowledge of Christ my Lord. Am I making sense, beloved? So, God, are you a school teacher? Ask yourself, how could I use my teaching skill to further the teaching department in the church? Are you a draftsman? How can I use my draftsmanship? Are you a poet? Are you an artist? Ask yourself, how could I use that gifting to benefit or to enhance what the church has already? A young man, Sherwin, is Sherwin here? Not here. Sherwin Thomas. That young man got saved. And he sat down and he began to observe. I never asked him a thing. I didn't know what he could do. But as he looked around a little bit, maybe for about a month, or not even a month, he realized what he had can be used to enhance the church. And the next thing you know, he found himself up there with Kevin. And he said, the pastor need to have something better than what you have, man. He was going to hold, mic in the hand and check in. So he said, you need to get a cordless headset. So he brought me the headset. Didn't ask for no money. He said, use that, man. In other words, Sherwin recognized what he had. The next thing we know, we had one, we have two, a third one day. He may took it on because the light was actually humbugging it. So you can see what you're seeing there. He never asked me a word to say he wants some money. But they make sure the guys put up that there so you can see both places. You know what? He used what he had. He used what he was trained in and make sure that Rhema was enhanced and it was improved because of what God gave him. Beloved, that is the idea. They bestowed. What do you have? What do you have? What ability God gave you? That's why, it is very, very funny. I'm going to stop here. I know that you have been listening to me for quite a while, and I know my voice isn't sounding too good because I'm just forcing to talk, really. So I'll stop in 5 minutes or so. We have to come to a point in our life when we recognize what I have, God gave me. How could I use it in the kingdom? How could I use it to be a blessing in the house of God? And you do that by looking around, by observation. See how things are. We have a good drum set there, and we have the enclosure. How you think this came about? It wasn't because of me, a member who got saved not too long, came to know the Lord as Savior, realized, well, we need to make this look a little better rather than a drum here and a drum there. So we did a thing called an enclosure. And next thing I know, the enclosure was actually acquired. Nobody came to say, well, we need an enclosure, and it ain't looking good, to see, a drum there, and a drum there, and a drum there. We can do better than that, and I think you need to, it ain't looking good. No, they didn't do that. They use their expertise. They use what gifting they have and say, we can make it look first class. We can make it look professional. And without trying to addle my brain or to bring weight on my chest, they went ahead and they did that. Isn't that wonderful? That's a good thing we have there. And that's what I'm talking about. When you bestow what you have, your possession, your substance, your ability, your gifting for God. And I close with a last statement. I've been told by some pastors that they don't use the word really, but I'm stupid. And this is how they tell me I'm stupid. You are giving premarital counseling free of charge Every single week you set aside an evening to be counseling people before you marry them at no cost. He fellow tell me, and the fellow who I mentor, I mentored him. He said, I charge $1,000 per session. I said, what? You didn't get it from me? He said, but no, but can't let people milk you? He said, it takes expertise. $1,000 per session. He thought I'm a fool to be charging nothing to conduct a marriage. So I lecture them, I marry them, I dedicate their baby. When they die, I conduct their funeral. All that at no cost. And as long as I'm the pastor of this church, people will be charged not 1 cent for any service we offer them. It wouldn't happen. So one day, a couple came in to see me. They want to get married. So I told them what is expected, what they ought to do, and blah. And after half an hour, they say, well, there's one thing you didn't tell us, Pastor. I said, what's that? What is the fee? What's the cost? I said, oh, I'm glad you remind me. And I said, you look like a good couple. I think I like you guys, you know. I said, as is you, I will charge you $5,000. You say, and the fellow gasped, and his face changed. I said, I just want you to know, I'm not pulling your legs. I said, it costs you nothing. You say, what? I said, it costs you nothing. I said, it is a privilege. I said, it's an honor that you will come to me to ask me to marry you. I don't know you. I said, there's something you must have heard about me where you want to come in. I said, it's an honor. I said, when I marry you, it's an honor for me to marry you. It's an honor for me to dedicate your baby for you. I said, God has given me the ability and the privilege, and I'm not going to take it for granted. I said, I am honored when you can walk up here and ask me to conduct your marriage for you. I said, I want to thank you. And the guy said to me, you are one of 1,000. He said, it doesn't happen like that in Trinidad. I said, why must I charge you money when you are giving me an opportunity to be blessed by God? So, beloved, that's how it is. We must understand. I know why when people become successful in life and they have no time for the church, I become very flustered about that. I become very flustered. When you become too important, they have no time now for God. That bothers me. It's because you don't understand that what you have been endowed by God to be a blessing. And the blessing starts in the house of God. To bless the people of God. To be a blessing, to be a help. Is Jason here? Not Jason Niles. Another Jason. Where is he? Would you stand up, sir? Oh, yeah, that guy. He just got saved, but we can't stop him, you know. The guy like a hummingbird. Moving. You want to be involved everywhere. Moving. God bless you, Jason. That's what I'm talking about. Becoming so busy, wanting to be involved, wanting to get things done, wanting to make things happen. Thank God for you, Jason. God bless you. Am I making sense, folks? I don't think so. Anyhow, could we all stand, please?